Montana Access Project, and myself, Diane Conradi, and Rachel Schmidt from Montana's Office of Outdoor Recreation. We have put this together to be able to empower communities across Montana and across the Crown of the Continent area to put their outdoor recreation assets to work for quality of life, economic development, and health and wellness. Today, we have our two guests, Sheena Pate, who's the project coordinator for the Crown of the Continent Geotourism Council, and we have Bob Walker, who is the chair of the Montana Trails Coalition and a sponsor of the series, the summit. So we go through this every time, but if you have questions, please feel free to use your chat box. We value your input. If you have questions for the speakers, if you have ideas for topics you would like to hear in the future, if you have ideas for the summit, just let us know. If you have technical troubles, you can text your issue to our team at 406-200-8240. As I mentioned, the hosts of this series is the Montana Office of Outdoor Recreation and the Montana Access Project, which is helps communities level the playing field for accessing resources that they need to have inspired recreation on the ground. My name, as I mentioned, is Diane Conradi, and I'm a serial founder. I founded the Whitefish Legacy Partners, which is 20 years in, has the Whitefish Trail, and also a co-founder of the Montana State Parks Foundation, because I'm absolutely committed to front country places that people can access nature every day. I believe that as important as those inspired places to get nature are and have been to Montana's heritage, they are even more important now and more challenging now with COVID. Over and over, we see people turning to the outdoors for solace, for health, for wellness. And we've also seen in communities like ours and probably Sheena's and maybe Bob's, that folks are coming from all over the place to enjoy the natural amenities, world-class natural amenities that Montana offers. So with that, I'm going to have our guests, Sheena Pate and Bob Walker, say a few words about themselves and to get started. So Sheena.
Hi, how's everyone doing? So my name is Sheena Pate, and as Diane said, I'm the project coordinator for the Crown of the Continent Geotourism Council. So we really see this Business of Outdoor Recreation Summit as an extension of the work that we're already doing, partner with additional groups. So our organization was started in 2006, and it's a collaboration between local stakeholders in Alberta, BC, and Montana. So we're transboundary. It includes community, regional, marketing and economic groups, conservation and business groups, educators, First Nations, government agencies in our 18 million acre region, so it's quite large. So it's that area that surrounds the Waterton Glacier International Peace Park and extends just south of Banff and then all the way north of Missoula, so kind of that rattlesnake area. So we're really a strong and active transboundary partnership characterized by our high level of commitment and cooperation and collaboration between all of the local stakeholders within that group. So we're made up those that are willing to work beyond borders, may that be county, multiple jurisdictions as far as who's managing the land, international, all of those things. So we're all really working towards the same goal And the success of our program, which we hope extends through the summit, is really those relationships and having a shared pride in our region and the potential to develop the economies of the communities while stewarding and enhancing and celebrating kind of what it means to live in these special places and visit. So really that special character of place. So that's a little bit about our organization.
Bob? Thank you, Sheena. Bob, you want to talk a little bit about the Trails Coalition and your tireless commitment as well to Front Country Recreation Parks and Trails?
Hi, everyone. My name is Bob Walker, and as Diane just mentioned, I'm chair of the Montana Trails Coalition. I served as Montana's first state trails programs manager, starting way back in '91, and did it for quite a few years. So hopefully I know many of you. Prior to that time, I was also chair of American Trails, which is the National Trails Coalition of trails organizations. We've also been involved with both non-motorized and motorized national associations in the past. So I'd like to think I bring a fairly broad knowledge and interest to the trails program in Montana, in addition to all outdoor recreation, every type. With that, I'll talk more about the Montana Trails Coalition a little later.
Great, thank you, Bob. So I'm gonna show this slide again. Every time, but it really tells the story of outdoor recreation. You know, outdoor recreation is a huge driver of the Montana economy. Montana is one of the states that has the highest value add of outdoor recreation to the economy in the nation. It's $7.1 billion and 71,000 jobs that we're talking about. Sometimes I think the characterization of the outdoor economy is one-dimensional. We think of tourism, but it actually really isn't. It's about direct benefit of guides and outfitters. It is about tourism, but it's also about quality of life and health. And I think that, as I mentioned before, that quality of life and health is the backbone both of why people come, why people stay in Montana. If you look at the ads for the tech companies in Montana, like Submittable or Onyx Maps, they start with, hey, do you want to go biking at lunch? Do you want to go get into the backcountry minutes from town? Do you want to put a fly in the water after work? Well, then we have the job for you. So I think that it's the access and quality access to outdoor recreation really is a competitive advantage for Montana and for Montana businesses. There's also a trend that has grown, and there's a name for it, and it's called Zoom towns. So a lot of Montana's towns are facing the challenge and opportunity of having folks move and take their work where they want to live. So I'm sure we're all seeing it. Columbia Falls, Whitefish, across the state, but that is the climate that we're looking at when we talk about the business of outdoor recreation. It's not just gear, it's not just guides. It's about Zoom towns, it's about quality of life, it's about clean water, conservation, wildlife habitat, and it's about jobs. So that is why the state of Montana hosted its first summit highlighting the business of outdoor recreation because it's such an immense economic driver. Last year, and Sheena, help me out with this, the last one was not last year, but the year before, How many folks did you have attending?
For the 2018, we capped out, I believe, at 275, which had actually exceeded the capacity of the facilities. And we had a long waiting list. So, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a huge need and a huge, it's huge. This year with COVID, we are facing some additional challenges, which Sheena will tell you about, but it also is, I think, adds some additional opportunities because you can have more folks who don't have to travel as far, and still create that community and content. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sheena to talk about the summit this year.
Perfect. So Diane kind of touched on how it came to be. Rachel and I met in Rachel Schmidt, Montana Office of Outdoor Recreation. We met in a coffee shop, and it had been something that had been really bugging us was how do we get together diverse stakeholders who are actually working towards the same goal, kind of enhancing and sustaining that sense of place, community, well-being of community, conservation of the land. So all these different people that were actually working towards the same thing, but they'd always worked in their silos and didn't think there was a connection to one or the other. So we wanted to provide a platform and a safe place for people to do that. It didn't matter your political affiliation, what user group you represented, we're all in this together. So really providing that, again, that platform for the willing to come together. So that's kind of how it came to be in 2018, and everyone loved it for inaugural year. I would say it was very successful. And so with that energy, we decided to move forward and do a large summit every other year. And then in between, we would do kind of an innovation lab between, which is smaller scale. So we got to partner with Diane on that one last year. So this year is our full summit. We had hoped it would be in person in Great Falls, as you know. We had COVID come and stay, so we have switched it to virtual. So we're actually, like Diane said, it is an additional opportunity for folks that wouldn't have been able to travel or afford to come to be able to do that. So we greatly reduced the rate to provide that service for everyone. So although we're not meeting each other, giving high fives, pats on the back, we're really excited to create a sense of community. And we've brought Bob Walker on board. So for this summit, we have the three partners. We have Montana Office of Outdoor Recreation, Bob Walker with Montana Trails Coalition, and then myself representing Crown of the Continent Geotourism Council. So we're essentially the three big co-hosts that have pulled our resources and brains together to do that. But I can't say enough for our amazing planning team of various different backgrounds, organizations, sectors that really helped start planning the in-person one last year, and then we had to shift to a virtual one. So kudos to them, and then they're helping us plan hopefully the Great Falls in-person one for 2021. And then we also have our sponsors that are helping to make this possible, so I should plug them. So the three co-hosts, and then we have Montana State Parks. We also have REI stepped up for their third year, and then National Parks Conservation Association, Montana Ambassadors, and then Yeti has come on board too. So really, how do we make this a platform that really kind of encourages diversity, inclusivity, get us all together to work towards a common goal and really, engage at various levels. And hopefully at some point we can figure out how to circulate funds back to recreation development, maintenance, and then the conservation efforts tied to it. So we have a little jazzy teaser for you.
Yeah, if you're on the fence about attending the outdoor recreation or the importance of outdoor recreation, this should be a good teaser. But I'll tell you, Sheena, watching it makes me actually want to be outside instead of doing this webinar. But kudos to you guys. Awesome.
So if you get a chance, you can head over to our Facebook for the event. Also, Montana Office of Outdoor Recreation also has this jazzy teaser posted too. So it has the music included to really get you pumped and excited about this event.
So Sheena, can you talk a little bit about, what topics came to the fore this year? I noticed that the theme of this year is building resiliency. Can you talk a little bit about that and how these topics further that?
Yes. So as you would imagine, we're all surviving 2020. So we felt the theme building resiliency for the future was a very perfect fit for this year and for the future. What we did was we had a bunch of panels planned for the in-person one that was going to happen this year. We pivoted, we sent out a bunch of surveys to people who attended in the past and then our other fellow partners, and we asked them to rank their top topics that they really wanted to focus in this time of COVID. And so it didn't have to be directly related to COVID, but it could be. So we essentially came up with, we ranked all of those topics. Some of them we were able to combine, but essentially what was highlighted was people really wanted us to talk about what are we doing with outdoor education, K through 12th and adults, what's being done, what can we do, how are we really fostering also stewardship with teaching just generally that what is outdoor recreation and how can you recreate. So all kinds of components with that. So we have some really great diverse speakers on that. And also a continuous conversation. I believe we also talked about it in 2018. And this is, we'll continue to talk about, as especially now that COVID has made, as Diane has said, Zoom towns in Montana, is how will we mitigate, how are we dealing with the impacts of increased users on the landscape? So how does that affect the landscape, the wildlife? How are we balancing it all? How do we get ahead of the curve so we're not reactive to that? Also tying into that one is we have noticed in gateway communities over multiple years, especially these past few years, is so in gateway communities, you have these stressors during the big summer flux in population. So you have the very small rural communities that are the gateway communities to the glaciers and the Yellowstones and maybe the Bob Marshalls. And so they don't have as much infrastructure. The infrastructure is built just for the people that live year round in their community. So it adds stresses whenever you have this big flux of people come in the summer. So how do we deal with that? How do we build for the future, but for the community? And how do we really foster that sense of community as to why people even come to that area? So lots of topics for sure. I won't read all of them, but community outdoor recreation realization pathways. So Diane's heading up that one. So that's a project that Diane, Rachel Schmidt, and Libby have been working on. So they'll dive into that. Another huge one, and I think 2020 also highlighted this because that one, along with how are we teaching outdoor recreation, ranked like 1 and 2 in our surveys, was health and well-being. So what is that? Health and outdoor recreation, health recreation, connection, how can that really help us feel like a balanced person physically and mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of these things. So we will have a really exciting lineup with that. I'll talk about in a little bit. And yeah, so we have some really great opportunities looking at all the different pieces that maybe you hadn't thought about, and kind of spinning it and getting you thinking, getting those creative juices thinking, how do we really work together to figure out solutions for some of these issues? And then a lot of our panelists are actually, they've figured out solutions within their communities, and how does that translate to your community? As far as the format, so of course we are not in person, so we had to somehow carry that energy that people loved so much in 2018. Unfortunately, we cannot keep you stocked with beer and delicious things to nibble on. So we're just trying to keep the excitement and the family atmosphere. So what we have pre-recorded podcasts. So we have multiple experts out there that are actually recording their podcast right now with speakers. And so those will be posted on the event website. So if you are registered, you'll be able to access them as soon as the summit starts, and then after too. So you just have to be registered, and then once it starts, you'll be able to access at your convenience. So really great, diverse podcasts. Head over to our website to check that out. We also have live panel sessions. So each day we'll have 2 live panel sessions. I believe there's one day that has 3 live panel sessions. And we really welcome you to join us live if you're able to. You'll be able to submit questions through the chat box, or you can ask live. If you can't make it, you can always go back. We're recording all of the sessions, and those will be posted after the live session happens, so you'll be able to access that during the summit and then after. So if you're registered, you'll be able to access all of this content. And then additionally, we have a couple workshops. We have one on SCORP, so the statewide outdoor recreation plan. We also have a really exciting one. We have a veteran, and so he's going to be kind of leading us through an intro yoga session, and really talking about how just the movement of body and outdoor recreation can provide healing for veterans. And so he'll have a couple psychologists join him on that one. And then we also have how to communicate with elected officials. So lots of great content, various delivery methods, and kind of grand finale, we'll have the Film Fest, which is presented by Yeti. So we'll have a nice curated collection of Yeti films you'll be able to watch. We have some really great Yeti giveaways. So if you're joining us that last evening for the Film Fest, we'll have a random selection, and so we'll be selecting people that are watching it live, and then we'll let you know if you want one of those prizes and get it out. So Diane has pulled up kind of a sampling of who you can expect as far as our panelists or speakers. So we're really excited about the lineup. Of course, we'll have a welcome from Steve Bullock, John Tester. He's going to be helping us with how to communicate with elected officials. We have several other elected officials at various different levels of government, maybe local, state, county, federal, and so they'll be giving your tips too. So really, how can you best effectively communicate your issues and how you can get those solved? We have speakers and presenters from Alberta, from BC, and from Montana. We also have some additional folks from Washington, DC, and Idaho. And then, of course, we're always honored to have representatives from some of our First Nations and tribes. So we have Rich down with Confederated Salish Kootenays, so long history of working with the tribe on natural resources down there. So some really cool projects they're working on down there. We also have a Ktunaxa Elder, Blackfeet Nation. We have a representative from the Pegan Institute. So really, how do we bridge that teaching the native language with outdoor health, so some really cool intersections. And then we just had Rocky Mountain Adaptive. They're out of Canmore, Alberta, and they run a really robust adaptive sport program with multiple different sports, disciplines, disabilities, and also teaching stewardship. So we're really excited about the lineup. If you joined us in 2019, you might have remembered Antonia. So she had the book, A Walking Life, so reclaiming our health and our freedom, one step at a time. And she's actually joined Mike Foote, if you're familiar with Mike Foote. He's a sponsored ultra runner with the North Face, does really great work with Five Valley Trust and multiple other passion projects. And so they're actually partnering up on a podcast with Zoe Rom, who is with Trail Runner Magazine. And so they're doing a podcast, so really exploring what it means to move through the landscape, maybe in a community, the great outdoors, and how that can create a sense of community. So lots of really great, interesting folks on our panels, I would say.
Thanks, Gina. If I weren't already signed up, I would sign up now. I'm really excited about it because I think, you know, sharing ideas, sharing wisdom, sharing experience, and especially now is incredibly valuable, especially our cross-border challenges, cross-nation challenges. If you haven't, we'll have a link at the end. And of course, if you want to either watch this web presentation again, you can check it out at the Montana Access Project website. But to enter the, you know, sign up for the summit, go to the Governor's Office of Outdoor Recreation. There's a link to the agenda, to the website. It's on Whova, which is an app. You can sign up, you can learn more about the speakers, the panels, the agenda, who's going to be there, who's going to participate. And it's a pretty slick way of plugging in from wherever you are. So with that, I think, thank you, Sheena. You know, Montana Trails Coalition is a co-sponsor of this summit. And I'm going to turn it over to Bob Walker now to talk about the coalition, talk about why the coalition is fired up about the summit and committed to the summit, and what lies ahead, what lies on the path ahead for trails in Montana. So take it away, Bob.
Thanks, Diane. The Trails Coalition first formed about 4 years ago, and it's made up of a diverse array of organizations, as you can see from this slide. It represents motorized and non-motorized, backcountry and front country organizations, communities and towns. Frankly, that's who I represent on the board, is the Montana Trails Recreation and Parks Association, which is made up primarily of the professionals of cities and some county parks and recreation departments. Our primary purpose was to work together to share information, and to what it came down to was raise more adequate funding for trails in Montana. We have most of the major land managing agencies who serve as advisors. And you can see we did have the Department of Natural Resources and Conservation, but we're still waiting for a new appointee from that organization. They do take an active role in our discussions and provide a lot of good background information when we're coming up with some crazy ideas sometimes. It's a fun group, but it's an important group. I think I mentioned the term partnership. That was probably the most important word that I mentioned in that previous comment. And this is something I want to relate to the summit a little bit about. In the 2018 summit, that was the first conference, and I've been involved in a lot of them, nationwide and in Montana, where it brought the whole community together. Usually it's the hikers and the bikers and the parks people, recreationists. The business community was there too, the diverse business community. And that's where, I think that was the first conference in Montana where we truly heard from and learned from the entire community. Our partnership, we learn from each other. We educate each other and we learn to understand one another. And that's the key thing about partnerships and coalitions. We can go to our little corners of the world and view things just from our perspective. But when we start issues of other groups, that's when we really succeed. That's when we have a chance to succeed. We find common ground, and that's what our coalition does. We don't always agree on everything. And so usually those items are left to the side of the table and we key in on those topics and ideas that will benefit everybody. As I say in the slide, compromise for the benefit of the most. I wanted to mention that the Business Outdoor Recreation Summit, Shane had already talked about training and discussions and programs. Well, you're going to learn more about some programs I think all of you are interested in and need. One is a program that's existed since 1991. It's the Recreational Trails Grant Program. And it was the first national program that really benefited trails and recreation at all levels. Now, part of what happened at the 2018 summit, and I thank Rachel Vandevort and everybody who was involved in that one, the Montana Trails Coalition, we wrote a draft bill and we found a sponsor that would become Montana's first comprehensive trails and outdoor recreation bill to pass the legislature in the last 30 years. And we were able to introduce that proposal at the 2018 summit. And that's where we gained a lot of our support throughout the state for that bill. And I'll talk a little bit more about some details of that later. A bill that passed the session, last session, 2019, was a new summer motorized trail grant program that requires a permit, even for residents, to ride on public trails. And it'll produce, lately I heard that it had come up with about $250,000 a year for summer motorized trails. You've all heard about the Great Americans Outdoor Act and the impact it had broadly, but it enhanced the Land and Water Conservation Fund. It's going to more than double the amount of money from that program that Montana receives in the future. And it's gone a lot to cities and towns and state parks, but it involves a multitude of types of recreation out there. And the one that I really want to key in on is the new Trail Stewardship Grant Program. I want to key in on that because, as I said a minute ago, it was the Montana Trails Coalition that came up with the idea, wrote the draft bill, carried it to the 2018 summit, and we somewhat coordinated testimony at the state legislature. And you'll learn more about that at this year's summit. Because one of the key points is the lobbyists are there all the time. The legislators get to know them. You know who they really listen to? Are Montanans from all over the state. It's important to get you there to testify for whatever interests you may have. We produced a study. We got a grant to produce a study back in 2018, and it serves somewhat as the selling point, the basis for our statements to the legislature. It's called Montana Trails in Crisis. And it dealt with the whole array: community trails, backcountry trails, motorized, non-motorized. And it was amazing the impact it had on decisions that have been made since. It's still fairly well up to date, and that was an important document. And guess what? We did share that at the 2018 summit. So there's another reason for coming to this year's. You'll learn a lot, you'll get a lot of good information, and you can share your own information with others. Now, the new Trail Stewardship Grant Program. I'm not going to give a lot of detail. A webinar last week talked about it, and you'll hear a lot more detail about it at the summit. But it's going to be available for trail development, rehabilitation, and maintenance. That was specified in the bill. So maintenance is included. And in many grant programs, you can't do maintenance. So this is a lifesaver for small communities, large communities, and everyone in this bill. And guess what? All grants require a match. This only requires a 10% match, and it can be a soft match or a hard match. Soft means labor, volunteer labor, donated materials, and so on. And you know, we've got these 50% grant program, match grant programs like Land and Water. RTP is 20%. Well, the 10% from the Stewardship Grant Program can be used as a match for the other programs. So there's another benefit, especially to small communities. It's similar to the Recreational Trails Program for those of you who've taken part in that program, but there's a lot less strings. It's a state program, not a federal program. So the strings are vastly reduced. And I think you'll enjoy that one once you get into it. Now, the source of the money, it comes from, and the key point here, it's optional. The optional light motor vehicle registration increase, it went from $6 to $9. And what we know now is that $3 increase will result in $2,600,000. Now, so you'll know how positively accepted this has become. When we were working the legislature, the fiscal note anticipated around $1.8 to $2 million to come in from this program, and it was because they felt there'd be a pushback by some individuals who choose not to pay the $9, that fee increase. Well, guess what? Again, it's become very popular, and it could be a result of COVID. It could be a result of people getting outdoors more in the last 6 months. It could be a point of people enjoying our state parks and getting out on the trails more. But the participation, the acceptance is way beyond what we had anticipated. So this is how the breakout of that $3 goes. $1.38 goes to the Trail Stewardship Program. The grant program I talked about a minute ago, which you can all take advantage of. $1.37 goes to state parks. Well, state parks is responsible in the state by law to be involved to protect and enhance the fish, wildlife, parks, and recreation resources of the state of Montana. They're the motherboard, as I've called it a few times. And they provide a lot of recreation out there in their state parks. So that's why they received an increase. Fishing access sites. Why? Well, because if you go to the fishing access sites, there's a lot of trails on those fishing access sites. They provide a lot of recreation. So we tried to, that's why I call it a comprehensive trails and recreation bill. It wasn't just a motorized bill. It wasn't just a non-motorized bill. It wasn't just a parks bill. It benefits everyone. So anyway, what it ends up bringing to the grant program, better check my notes here a little better. We had anticipated in the fiscal note $948,000 maximum per year from this program. And our latest report is that $1.25 million will be available. And you can see it's grants to just about everybody, including trails associations, clubs, communities of all types, counties, reservations, school districts, state and federal agencies. So again, it's very comprehensive. And I think I think I can tell you this. The Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, the managing agency, because I managed 3 other grant programs in my career and wrote the grant application materials for the Inclusive Playground Management Program. I'm currently reviewing the grant program guidelines and application, which I've found to be interesting, but frankly, it's going to be very similar. It's going to follow the same application process as the Recreational Trails Program. The forms and guidelines are similar. Some of the changes I mentioned a minute ago, like the 10% match. It's going to be separate, though. All the accounting is going to be separate from Recreational Trails Program to avoid the federal strings and red tape. And we do have a State Trails Advisory Committee in Montana that's made up of representatives of trail organizations and also federal agencies that serve as advisors. They will be the ones to review your grant applications and to recommend to Fish, Wildlife, and Parks who gets the money. The grant application period will start on, I think you want to know this, November 2. So it's coming up. And if you've applied for RTP in the past, you can kind of start preparing because there's not going to be many changes. And with that, I hope you all take advantage of it. I hope you all attend the summit. And I don't know if you can see this, but this little glass mine says, "Happy Trails." It's all yours, Diane.
So let me see if we have any questions. Oh, no sounds with the video. Okay. Sorry about that. Sorry, Jen. Apparently there was no sound with the video. I had sound with the video. It was awesome. It was powerful. But we'll work on that for, maybe we can work on that for the replay. If you do want to see the video and hear the music, you can check that out, as Sheena mentioned, at the Business of Outdoor Recreation website. Sheena, Facebook page, that trailer.
Yeah, it can be found on the Facebook page. And if there haven't been any questions posed, I can kind of, there's just a few like frequently asked questions that I've been getting. So I'm happy to kind of bring those up and answer those too.
Sure, sure.
Okay.
Let me just run through quickly. Mark your calendars, of course, Business for Outdoor Recreation Summit. We have a link to that. As I mentioned, this webinar and the deck will be available on the Montana Access Project website. Our next path ahead is as our episode 4. I'm hoping that someone can figure out a better name for this, but my name is the best project ever. And that's how guidance from the state of Montana about how rural communities can compete for some of these new grant funds that Bob Walker talked about. As Bob mentioned, you know, some of the impediments for rural communities, and by that I mean the ones that don't have an open space bond or are the smaller communities. So not the Whitefishes, Bozeman's, Helena's, and Missoula's, Billings. But, you know, how smaller communities can have a competitive, good, strong, competitive project proposal to compete for those grant funds. Bob got a little bit in the weeds today, not in a bad way, but just a little bit in the weeds about how that program is going to roll out. And we'll hear from the agency itself that's administering the program to give some input on that, because it is the first one that will be rolled out. And, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how we administer the increased funding that Bob mentioned from the Great American Outdoors Act. Our first episode was called Unpacking the Great American Outdoors Act. We talked about it a little bit. There are multiple components to the Great American Outdoors Act. some of which will hit the ground in communities through federal agencies like the Forest Service or BLM. Some will hit the ground through state agencies. And so getting the details for how to access those increased funding sources is, you know, what we're going to be focusing on with this webinar series. As Bob mentioned, the application period is going to open for those grants on November 2nd. That's tentative, unless Bob, I don't know if you've heard anything more recent than that.
As far as I understand, November 2 is firm.
Okay, so that's when those are going to open for the LWCF, the Land and Water Conservation Fund, state and local grants, the Recreational Trails Program, and that first ever Montana Trail Stewardship Grant that Bob talked about. So with that, I will have Sheena, we already know that. Okay, if you want to be in, you know, get updates on government grant funding, funding opportunities, other updates, join the Facebook group, Front Country Alliance. As Bob Walker mentioned, you know, Front Country Recreation isn't just trails, it isn't just parks, and it isn't just fishing access sites. So we kind of need to all join together on those amenities, user groups, communities that we want to see that really foster the outdoor recreation economy, Montana heritage, health and wellness, all those good reasons. So Sheena, can you talk a little bit about what you're hearing from frequently asked questions?
Yes, perfect. I won't take up too much time. So folks are just kind of wondering how are we going to work this format? What are they going to get out of it? So really, just like 2018, you're going to get usable data, access to resources, really engage in that conversation about the cultural and social shift and how groups engage with each other and also with the government. If you attended in 2018, great, you'll remember we had those handouts. If you didn't, that's totally fine. We welcome you. So each panel session will have a handout, so a downloadable handout that'll be posted on the website for you to access if you're registered. And that one-pager handout will have an amazing list of resources, where to get the resources, grant opportunities, funding opportunities, panelists' contact information, or additional resources that the panelists feel that you should access, reports. So it's essentially curated resources of those various levels on one page that's relevant to that topic for the panel. So that kind of makes your life a little easier. So we get that question a lot. And of course, handouts, you can access them at your leisure if you're registered. So as soon as the summit starts, you'll be able to access those during and then after. Also, content, we get that question a lot. Can I access content? I'm an outfitter, I'm guiding hunts. I won't be able to make some of the days or all of the days, but I still want the content. And so we're seeing those folks start to register because we've let them know, yes, you can access the content when you get out of the woods, hopefully after a successful hunt. So you can access that content after, you just have to be registered. And then the Yeti Film Fest, we've been getting questions about that too. So the Yeti Film Fest, that's included with your registration. So for the full summit, and that includes the Yeti Film Fest, that's $50. And we're getting questions of, hey, I have friends, I have family that don't live in the same household as me that want to attend the film festival. How can we be a part of that? How can they potentially be able to win some of these giveaways? Well, it's only $8. They can register, sign up for the Film Fest through our website. It's only $8 for that, and they don't have to attend the rest of the summit. So anyone can attend the film festival and have possibility of winning some goodies from Yeti. Jobs, that's another one. I just have two more things. jobs people are asking, hey, I have job openings. This group seems like a perfect fit. Can I post jobs? Yes, absolutely. We already having, at least I think 1 or 2 people have posted jobs. We've had questions from students. Hey, I would like to attend this summit so that I can network through the Whova app or reach out to panelists or other people attending. And also, I'd like to get an idea of what jobs are out there. Well, this is a great opportunity if you're a student or not even a student. You can reach out to folks through the Whova app, which is our platform, and kind of get a feel of what's out there, network. Great platform for that. And then there's several discussion forums on the Whova app. So you can start talking to people and engaging about job opportunities, discussion forums related to the panel topics or anything that's related to Business of Outdoor Recreation Summit and the many assets. So those conversations are already happening pre-summit on the Whova app for those that have already registered, and then those will continue through the summit, and then they can continue after. So that never expires. So this is really a great opportunity to have all these diverse stakeholders, voices, nuggets of gold per se, that you can leverage this knowledge now and then into the future. So those are the questions that we've been getting the most of. So just wanted to share that with this group, but I'll hand it back to you, Diane.
So Sheena, okay, knowledge is great, networks are great, community is great, but like, what about the Yeti prizes? Can you talk about those a little bit?
Yes, you're putting me on the spot. There's a couple coolers. There's like a roadie, and I can't remember all the different. There's like 2 different size coolers, and then some other Yeti gear.
How do you get in with those? How do you get into the drawing for those?
Absolutely. So all you have to do is head over to our event website. Just click on the register button. It'll pop up a screen. You can either register for the full summit, or you can just register for the Film Fest, about $8. Just register for the Film Fest, hit register, that'll get you it. And then what we'll do is we will post the link for the Film Fest, and that'll be shared with you. That'll go out to you in an email leading up to when the Film Fest starts. So that's October 15th, and it goes from 7 to 9. So you'll get that link just before the Film Fest starts. And then throughout the Film Fest, we'll have our partners over at Yeti helping us do random selection of people's names. And so we'll announce those through chat boxes and that sort of thing. So if you are a lucky winner of one of the 3 prizes, we will get that out to you after the summit. So Yeti will send that to you. We do have some really cool, we love the Yeti giveaways, but for those that are registered for the full summit, we have 2% for Conservation, amazing group working out of the state and beyond. And they actually have some really incredible business and industry partners that are pulling together some swag. So hiking gear, camping gear, anything and everything you can imagine that's related to the outdoor rec. So if you're registered for the full summit, we'll be randomizing who that'll go to throughout the summit. So we highly encourage so that the randomization, you get more points for the more discussions and the discussion forums on the app, or sending us questions. So there's lots of great opportunities, but we're really excited about the swag that 2% for Conservation is working with various industry partners on. So you have 2 opportunities to register. If you just want the Film Fest, you can go to the website, hit register, select just Film Fest, or if you want the full summit, which I hope you do, register and then select just the summit, and then you are in, and we'll start getting all that information streamed to you.
Great. So it would be beneficial to sign up, beneficial to send out the link to the summit to anyone and everyone that you think might be interested. It's the disadvantage is that we don't get to give high fives, but the advantage is anyone can attend. Anyone can attend. So if there are people who love Montana, people who love outdoor recreation, people who like to recreate in Montana, and want to learn more about the nuts and bolts of what goes on to make those amazing opportunities amazing for all, have them sign up. We're wrapping up here, but I do want to give a double high five to Sheena and her team, and Bob as a sponsor. But I mean, these guys. Hi, Connor. Hi. Oh, who's that?
It's Connor.
Just being nimble, and Rachel's office and Sheena's office, just being nimble and adaptable to what COVID handed us this year. What they've done to pull it together and make it available and seamless to us users and planners, and scrambling behind the scenes. I hope you will sign up. I hope you'll attend. I hope you'll enjoy it. I hope you will attend with compassion, and that we're all in it together and we're all working together, and to remember that great conferences, like great nature experiences, don't happen by accident. So if you enjoy it, it's due to the hard work of someone like Sheena for the conference, or like Bob Walker and his team behind the scenes to make those places that we access nature and seek inspiration happen. So thank you so much. Website, Facebook, sign up, enter, more chats, more chances. Let's get going and get through 2020 and on to 2021. So thanks everyone for attending, and keep in touch. Bye-bye.